Got a question for you.
Yes.
What's your question for us?
What happens after you die? You ever thought about it?
Blackness.
Yeah,
Hope-
what about your soul?
Hopefully, I'm reincarnated into a butterfly.
Let's say you're right. Let's say you die and you reincarnate. That'd be interesting. But what if you're wrong? What if you die and you end up in hell with no escape? Wouldn't that be a terrible gamble?
Sure.
You know that the Bible tells you how to have eternal life. Has anyone showed you that before?
I'm an atheist.
What you believe is wrong, would you want to know?
How do you know what's right and wrong? How do you know the Bible's right?
I don't. I'm just a human. But God is all-knowing. He's all-powerful. He's beyond us. He told us what happens.
What's your proof of God?
Well, there's 4 different ways you can, throughout history, that people have determined how we came into being. How do you think we came into being? You ever thought about it?
I have, and I don't know, but I know I don't believe in a sky daddy.
Well, the first, I'll tell you about 4 different ways. The first one is that reality is an illusion. You ever seen The Matrix before?
Yes, I love that movie.
That's the view that reality is an illusion. That's the view of Hinduism, Buddhism. They think that everything that around us is not real. It's just an illusion. But here's the thing. In order to know what an illusion is, you have to know what an illusion is not. Like when you go to a magic show, the only reason you think it's cool is because you know those things aren't supposed to be happening, but they're happening. Because you can compare reality to fantasy. So that's how we know that the universe isn't an illusion. Because we have to know what a reality is in order to know what an illusion is. So that isn't true. How about this? Second view. The world is eternal, or the universe is eternal. It's always existed and always will exist. The problem with that is we know that there's aging that happens. People tend to get old. Things tend to go from order to disorder. We have proof. Scientific. Yep.
Isn't the whole thing with God, though, that he's always been there? There's no end and there's no beginning to God.
Yes, but we're talking about the universe right now, not God.
Okay, so you just, debunked your own argument, then. How can one and not the other, logically?
Let me keep going. I'm just going to go through them so you can kind of get an overview of everything. Okay. The third one is the Big Bang. A lot of people believe in the Big Bang, that something came from nothing. There was an explosion of energy, and everything we know came to be. The problem with that is always the first cause. How do you get that first bang? What made it happen? Why did it happen? All of these kind of things are always a problem. You can't get something from nothing. You can't get life from non-life, so to say. Something doesn't create itself. Okay? That's the Big Bang. The last one is that something outside of time, space, and matter created time, space, and matter. So something that is existing outside of time, space, and matter. Something that is creator, created everything that we know. See, we live inside of time, space, and matter, so all that we know and can know has to do with time, space, and matter. But God is outside of that. He's eternal. Time, space, and matter don't apply to God. Does that make sense?
Where did you come from?
God is outside of time, space, and matter. Time, space, and matter does not apply to God. Do you see that? How that makes sense?
Does that logically make sense to you?
God is the creator of logic. So
Does
we
that
are the created. It makes sense that something created something. It doesn't make sense that nothing came from, or everything came from nothing.
I just think we haven't discovered the reason yet. I think God was created to explain the unknown. That's why most gods were created, because they didn't have science.
If what you believe or were taught about God is wrong, would you be willing to change your mind?
Who says it's right or wrong, though?
What if you were taught? What if your idea of God? What if your idea of God is?
The Bible was man-written, was it not?
Yes, it was written by men.
How do you know it wasn't some fucking cult that they just wanted to be followed and have power?
Well, there's a couple of reasons why. First, it was inspired by God. We can tell that the Bible is true for a couple of reasons. First, we look at history. We can compare archaeology with what the Bible is saying, and the two, they do not go against each other, so to say.
Okay, so how do we know? Like, are you talking about like the stuff that's been found in like the ocean and shit?
I'm talking about pyramids and ancient cities and pottery and things like that align with Bible accounts.
Right.
Actual
So that
people
stuff
and
was
civilization.
around. That stuff was around, and they wrote stories about it.
Yes, and it doesn't go against that; it confirms it.
How does it confirm it? What are the facts?
For instance, the Bible told Alexander the Great. In the ancient times, there's just one example. The Bible told Alexander the Great that he was going to be a great conqueror from Greece, and he was going to conquer a great part of the world. And Alexander the Great, he didn't believe that. Then he saw it in the Bible, and he realized it was true. After it was written as a prophecy about him that happened, and he read it after it happened, and he was amazed by that. That's just one example. There's
But
many prophecies.
we don't know if that actually happened or if that's just the way it was like told to be happened so that people would believe it.
We do know that because we can compare it to historical writings and historical accounts. That's how we know. That's just one of the ways. There's a whole kind of group of research that compares these ancient Bible writings to.
It just doesn't like make sense to me. That could be like me getting a promotion at my job and then writing in my diary that like I'm gonna get a promotion at my job and say that I wrote it before that. It just doesn't line up.
You could say that, but you would have to do it thousands of times over thousands of years, and they'd have to be right every time. What are the chances of that happening? We're talking about hundreds, maybe thousands of prophecies and accounts and different things that have been affirmed to be true over time.
Who prophesies this?
Well, God inspired men to write these things down in the past, and then they came true in the future. So that's just one thing. That's archaeological evidence. There's historical accuracy, like I was telling you about.
This stuff is in the Bible.
Sorry?
You're saying these prophecies are in the Bible?
Yes, in the Old Testament, there's many, many prophecies, fulfilled prophecies of things happening and then them coming true. Like, for instance, a more recent one is talking about Jews coming back from all around the world and coming back to Israel after being scattered. That happened in the 1950s, 1947 actually. But the Jews were brought back after World War II to their own home country and to reestablish it. And the Bible's predicted that would happen, and it did.
Okay, so what if people are just reading these predictions and forcing this shit to happen?
The chances of that happening are very slim. You know, think about it. Some people did some mathematics. You look it up on Google, statistics of Bible prophecy coming true. The chances of all those things happening are, 1 in whatever, 1,000 million, whatever. But compared to the universe happening through a Big Bang, it's like 1 to the 100,000th power or something like that. So most people believe the Big Bang, even though the probability is a lot lower than all these prophecies coming true, and the prophecies actually did come true. Did you read, or are you a reader type person?
Yep.
I have a really good book that I recommend to people that's free. It's called Oneheartbeat Away. Have you heard of that before?
Nope.
Go on Google and type in Oneheartbeat Away PDF. I think it's like the first one on there. It has a lot of this kind of stuff that you're asking questions about. It's all documented and has sources and stuff, so you can research it. That's the big thing when it comes to human beings, is like we want proof, we want evidence. We're researching kind of people. And that's what God made us to be that way. He made us so that we're inquisitive, that we have a desire to do that because we desire truth. If we didn't desire truth, it wouldn't matter. We would just not care.
So did God make me?
Somewhere along the line, God created your ancestors, all of us, yeah. We all came originally.
Did he give us free will?
Of course.
Then why would he send me to hell for not believing in him?
have a choice to make, and that's what the gospel is. The gospel is how we make peace with God. I can answer your questions by sharing the gospel with you if you want to see it. What do you say?
So, because I chose not to believe in him, I'm going to go to hell?
Well, here's what it comes. Nobody is perfect. You, me, nobody. All of us sin. And that sin separates us from God. It's like light and darkness. We make a choice, and we choose darkness over light. And that's what breaks our relationship with God.
So even if I'm like an amazing human being, I don't do anything wrong, and just because I chose not to believe in him, he's going to send me to hell.
There's no such thing as an amazing human, if we're honest. Let me just ask you this. In your entire life, have you ever told a lie before?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like,
Me too, many
overall,
times.
like, if you're a good person, but you choose not to believe in God.
The standards for good, like, we can look at other people and we can find someone that's always way worse than us. Like, we can go to prison and find a murderer or something. Be like, look, I'm a good person, buddy. But the standard is not us comparing other people, because there's always someone worse. The standard is compared to God, the
I
source
just
of
think
justice.
It's absolute bullshit that a murderer can murder 72 people and repent and get sent to heaven, and then just because I choose not to believe in something when I have.
Well, it could be the case that you don't understand God, or you refuse to, and that's why it doesn't make sense to you.
Well, I went to church my whole life.
Here's what it comes down to. It's us comparing our standard to God. It's either we answer to God for our sin, or Jesus takes our punishment and he answers to God for our sin. That's what it comes down to. See, our relationship is broken with God. We can try to repair it our own way, but it never works out. That's the problem. Or we can trust God to take that punishment for us and fix our relationship with God. That's what it comes down to. You've heard that before if you've gone to church, I'm guessing. I don't know what kind of church you went to, but
I've heard it all.
so here's the thing. At the end of the day, nobody is perfect. We've all told lies. I have. We've all stolen things. I have. We've all hated people. I have. We've all disobeyed our parents. We've all used God's name as a cuss word. All those things separate us from God. It's like light and darkness. The two cannot be together. You know?
Are you a preacher or something?
No, I'm not a preacher. I'm a missionary. I'm helping people to make peace with God. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
You grew up a Christian? How do you feel about gay people?
Okay?
Nope.
You can talk about it if you would like, but I would rather tell you about the gospel, but what do you want to do? You want to hear about making peace with God, or you want to hear about gay people?
I want to hear what you think about gay people.
Well, it seems like God is taking the fun out of it for everybody, unless he has a plan for us, a better plan. See, God only puts his stamp of approval on one type of sexual union. Do you know what type it is?
I'm assuming male and female.
Yep. He puts a stamp of approval on a man and a woman in marriage. He puts an X next to fornication, like sex outside of marriage. Adultery, it's like married people having sex with other married people. Bestiality, sex with animals. Incest in the family, pedophilia, adults and children. Homosexuality, lesbianism. Since he's done that, there has to be a reason for why he did that. Here's what the Bible talks about. Let me find the verse here and copy it. It's in Romans. It says right here. For this cause God gave them up to vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature, and likewise men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lusts one toward another, men with men working that which is unseemly, and receiving to themselves the recompense of their error, which was meat. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do the things which are not convenient. So when people reject God and they just want to do their own thing, they want to live their own life, they want to do their own sins, then after a while, God keeps saying, hey, don't do this, it's not good for you. But after a while, God's like, okay, you rejected me, you want to do your own path, so I'm going to let you do your own thing. And he turns them over to what's called a reprobate mind. It's like a rebellious mind that wants to do what it wants. And it goes against the natural nature, which is man and woman, which is burning in lust toward men or toward women, things like that. That's what it's talking about. This is
So you don't think people are born like that?
No, I don't. Well, let me ask you this question. What color are your eyes?
Hazel.
I don't know. I'm kidding.
Can you change that eye color?
I'm sorry?
Eye color?
No.
Put a contact lens in or something. You could do it artificially, but naturally you couldn't do that. So, have you ever met a gay or lesbian person who left the lifestyle and went into a heterosexual lifestyle?
Oh, what
Wait.
lifestyle?
Heterosexual.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear you.
I haven't met anybody, but I'm sure it happens.
Yeah, I mean, if you go on YouTube, and you go to some of these channels, there's a few of them. There's testimonies of thousands of people that have left that lifestyle, and they typically leave it because they have a spiritual experience. They usually the main experience is because they become born again and make peace with God, like I was trying to tell you about. But they also leave because there's other reasons, like disease reasons, STDs, mental health issues, depression, suicide, drugs. On average, if you do the research for yourself, like about 20 years of life is cut off in the homosexual lifestyle. It's a lot shorter. And domestic violence issues and things like that. Anyway, there's a lot of testimonies on YouTube. You can look it up. But if somebody leaves the lifestyle, what do you think that means? Or if they can leave that lifestyle, what do you think it means?
They change their minds. Feelings can change.
Exactly right. It means it's a choice. There's certain factors that lead people down to the path to make the choice, but it's still a choice. So here's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Think about it this way. I don't know what your relationship with your parents is like, but if you have good parents, your parents typically want what's best for you. I'll say yes for me. Parents typically want what's best for you, and it's the same thing with God. God created us. He always wants what's best for us. And while we might not really completely understand it, if we go by what he says, the things will work out for us in our life. And that's what the Bible is all about. It's like God writing us a letter, an instruction about, hey, look, if you do this, you'll live. If you don't do this, then you're going to have problems. That's kind of what it comes down to. And that's what the history of the Old Testament and Israel and things as well, if you remember that from the Bible.
If there's only one true God, why are there so many?
Other gods?
Yeah, like who decided that your God that you follow is the right one?
Well, they can't all be right at the same time because they all say different things. So
right.
It's up to us to do the research and find out which one is right and to follow that. And here's the thing. God is the source of truth. So if we're looking for truth and honesty, we're going to find God. We're going to find the truth. I mean,
why were so many other gods created then?
Well, according to the Bible, there are angels, demons, God, and then human beings. So when Satan rebelled against God, he took a third of the angelic host with him, and they basically roam the earth in the form of demons. They have power over the earth. They can influence, they can give money, they can do all kinds of things. And a lot of them are very powerful beings that like to be worshipped rather than God. They're very intelligent beings. I mean, imagine if you're alive for thousands of years and you have no limits, you can do all kinds of things.
You believe?
What's that?
You believe that?
Of course. You don't believe in demons?
Fairy tale.
You don't believe
the whole Bible is like a fairy tale to me. Like Moses in the water. Do we believe in witches?
You don't believe
Vampires, witches.
You don't believe in people that drink blood?
Yeah, but not like the fucking like teeth bloodsuckers.
Yeah, okay, there's a difference between fantasy and reality, and that's what we have to discern.
Exactly. And you believe that Moses parted the Red Sea? That sounds like reality to you?
He didn't part it, God did. Listen, God is all powerful, he's all knowing, he can do anything he wants. Of course he could part the sea if he wanted to.
How do you know that?
Well, if you go on Google and you type in Moses, Red Sea, archaeology, go look in there in the Red Sea, you can see all kinds of archaeological pictures and things about, wheels and all kinds of Egyptian chariots from that era, the sea covered in coral, stuff like that. There's all kinds of evidence that it happened.
I meant more like, how do you know God? I don't know. Well, it makes zero sense. God to me is a fantasy. If you don't believe in witches, which is a fantasy, how do you believe in God? Like, I don't know.
You can say it all you want, but you have to find evidence to back it up. And I've given you plenty of examples to look at. So, see, nobody can make you believe. We can show you the evidence, we can tell you, but you ultimately have to make peace with God on your own accord. It could be that you grew up in a church and you're angry at God, and you have reasons why. Maybe somebody hurt you, or you had a hard time or something, and that's making you angry with God. But that's no reason to keep you away from the truth. It's just a personal thing.
I mean, I've had a perfectly normal life.
That's good. You should be thankful for that.
I just grew up and I realized that half the stories in there are so unbelievable. I don't know how logically anybody could think it was real.
Well, if God is what he says he is and can do what he says he can do, then anything is really possible. Who are we to limit God?
Yeah.
We're limited beings.
Did you say if God?
Posing it to you because you don't believe God exists. Let me put it this way.
Men are better than women?
Hold on a second. Let me put this to you. Think about it this way. Let's say all human beings from all time, they put all their knowledge together and they combine it together and compare that to the total knowledge of the galaxy. How much do you think that would be? Let's say like all humans knowledge together for all time, probably like 1% of the entire knowledge of the galaxy. It's like hardly, if even. Who's to say that outside of that 1%, the other 99% is where God exists? He's unlimited. He's all-knowing. He can be everywhere at the same time. The possibilities, we're very limited. We can't know everything.
How can God?
Like I said, God is outside of time, space, and matter. He's the creator. He's unlimited.
And he only created us?
Sorry?
He only created us?
Well, he created angels and demons and planets and galaxies. I mean, everything.
Why is there only one?
Have you ever heard of the Drake equation before?
Nope.
Drake equation is a giant equation that people or scientists came up with to determine the possibility of life happening on other planets, all the things that are needed for life here on Earth. And the chances of that happening in the galaxy are, well, you can read it for yourself. And some other people made some other kind of videos about all the possibilities or all these things that would have to be true. So when you look at it from that perspective, you realize that because Earth is so unique, because all these things happen here, because of the distance from the sun, all these different things that make it possible to have life, it's really a miracle. It really points to God. He's showing the vastness of the universe to us as part of its power. We don't even completely understand the universe, nor do we understand even our own planet. Like we can't even drill, past a certain amount of miles into the depths of the Earth. We don't know what's inside the Earth. We can guess at it. We know it gets hotter. We've never been to the bottom depths of the ocean. Like, we don't know anything hardly about our own planet. I mean, we're learning a lot, but there's still things that we just don't know.
That's why I feel like we just haven't found the answer.
Limited. Think about this. See,
Well, and I think that's exactly why, like, God was created, just like all the freaking, like, Greek gods, like, were created because they didn't understand things, so they created gods to have an explanation. I think that's exactly why the Christian God was created. Because why people aren't, like, still creating gods and creating, like, huge, like, religions, because science is a thing now. Science is so advanced, we don't need a God to explain things we don't know anymore.
Could it be that science is a god people have created for themselves as well, to not believe in God? An idol, so to say? See, here's the interesting thing.
To me, science is fact.
Most gods on the earth, they are created in the image of man, meaning that they enable us to do the things that we want to do. But people don't like God in Christianity because God tells them the truth and limits what they can do. Tells them these things are sins or whatever, and people don't want to do that. They want to live their own way. Why would a human create a God that limits them in such a way? It's beyond them in that way. It just doesn't make any sense. Here's how we know that God exists: by observing the universe around us. There's ways. You can look and see that, okay, God is outside of time, space, and matter. So if he created time and space, he has to be supernatural, meaning he's outside of nature. He has to be powerful, very powerful, exceedingly powerful to do something like that. He has to be eternal because he's outside of time, meaning always existing. He has to be omnipresent, meaning he can be everywhere at the same time because he created space. So he's not limited by space. So when we look at just a few things, make a few observations, we can come up with like what God is like. So if he's outside of time, he has to be timeless. He's outside of time, he's outside of the physical, he has to be immaterial, like spiritual. He has to be personal because you can't get personality from something that is impersonal. You can't like get intelligence from a rock or something that doesn't have being, so to say. So that all makes sense. You just kind of go down the line. He has to be extremely intelligent because only a cognitive being can make something that can have cognition. It's kind of like humans. When we are creating AI, we're giving it intelligence and all these kind of parameters to exist by, but only because we're intelligent. We can direct it to do that. Something without intelligence can't create intelligence. So, I mean, another reason why the Big Bang doesn't make any sense.
Wow.
There's just a few things that you can look at. He has to be purposeful, like deliberately creating all these things, deliberately making the planet so it can support life, have a certain percentage of oxygen, need oxygen, be a certain distance from the sun, have a certain rotation, all these things, seasons, all these different kind of things to support life. It has to be very purposeful. He has to be moral, caring, so to say, to give us these kind of ideas that we have about right and wrong. All these different kind of things point to God, and the way that we can know that, okay, is Christianity true, is we compare all those observations to what the Bible says, and the Bible lines up exactly with those observations. That makes sense.
Do you feel like we needed God to tell us that, like, killing people and lying was bad, though?
If God didn't exist, it wouldn't matter.
You don't think, like, as a human race, we couldn't have figured out that killing each other is bad?
I'm saying it wouldn't have mattered.
But you're saying like why would we create a God that limits us? But I think the human race would have limited itself. I don't think anybody needed a God to say that killing someone was bad.
Okay. That's fine. I mean, you can think that way if you like. Anyway, I've outlined for you all a lot of different about today, and I want to share with you that book name again. It's called Oneheartbeat Away PDF. It's for free. I want to encourage you to check it out. You might really like it. It's one of my favorite books. When I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. It's kind of written in a engaging way. But you know what? You sound like a really intelligent person. I'm sorry if anybody hurt you in your past when it comes to Christianity, things like that. But I do really appreciate your time and hearing things out.
Have a good night.
You too.